Hello everyone and welcome back to the JP on Comms YouTube channel for a little look back over the Maidstone United versus Dorking Wanderers game Tuesday night at the Gallagher under the floodlights. The first time in a long time we've had an evening kickoff, but I was down there up in the press gantry. Unfortunately, just before we get into the video, I do want to just bring a quick update regarding Stones Live. We did arrive at the ground yesterday, and unfortunately, during its time in storage, some of our equipment was damaged. Again, this is just an accidental thing. These things do happen. Stuff gets moved around, stuff gets broken sometimes, and that is what happens. So if you're wondering why there was no live commentary last night from myself and Callum Owen, then that is the reason why. We are working on sorting something out for the Wrexham game, although there is no guarantee, so fingers crossed we can get something together and bring you a live commentary from that. I'll be doing it with a friend of mine, Connor, as well, who I did commentate the Welling game with last season, amongst a couple of other games as well. So of course, just get that apology out of the way before the video does start. And one more thing to address just before we get into looking at the game itself. Hakan was not at the game last night. A few people have asked why he dipped to the post-match interview or didn't come to the game, because some people didn't even realise he wasn't there. Apparently he was at a family wedding. These things happen. Probably in place for an incredibly long time before the season even started, especially since the fixtures only come out about 6 weeks ago. So of course he's got other plans to be engaged with. Excuse the marital pun there, but of course hopefully he had a decent day anyway despite the result. So moving on, looking at the game, it was a 4-2 victory for Dorking Wanderers in the end. Incredibly disappointing, really. I thought we looked good at times during that game. There was about 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes of the game where we were like definitely the team that were on top, but that was spread out in maybe 10 to 15 increments, or 10 to 15 minute increments throughout the game. I was very disappointed by the start that we had to the game. Dorking definitely looked on top early on. We then come back straight after. Every time they scored a goal, we came straight back. Unfortunately, by the time they got the third, we were down to 10 men. Sam Corn did pick up a straight red card for what is presumably dissent. Very unusual to see a red card for dissent. However, there's a few things being bandied around that the ref believes. Sam said he was a cheat, but unfortunately it was just a bit of miscommunication, supposedly. And Sam just said it was a cheap penalty to give. So, you know, these things happen. Sometimes we just got to take it, move on to the next game. Of course, nobody wants to lose to Dorking, probably our biggest rivals in the league. After last season, they did the double over us as well. Did beat us by a 2-goal margin at home last season, but in the end, we did triumph by winning the title. So, you know, maybe these things might happen, might seem like a step back, but in the end, we might be able to prevail. So hopefully the squad can come back together for Wrexham at the weekend. Taking a little look at the game and some of the players as well now. Starting off with Yusuf Mersin at the back, of course, in the net. I think a few people were expecting Tom Hadler to come back in after a couple of shaky moments versus York. Made some great saves in this game, but unfortunately there was a lot, or not a lot, he could do for the majority of the goals. Of course, penalty, shots from one-on-one situations, you know, it's very difficult, but he made some fantastic saves where he rushed out to close down an angle and an oncoming defender in a 1v1, and did really manage to stop us conceding at least 2 more, maybe even 3 or 4 more. So you know, props to Mersin there. Vastly improved on the last game. Kicking as well was actually very good in this game, I thought. I don't actually recall him putting it out maybe more than once, which is always a good sign. Keepers are always going to put it out at least once in a game, but well, sometimes. But yeah, I thought he had a pretty good game. As for the defensive line, it's very tough to tell with this defensive line, since things are so mishmashed at the moment. Of course, with injuries, Jerome Binnon-Williams being out is a huge loss for us and is really causing a reshuffle at the back for Maidstone. Gavin Hoyt being deployed as a left back so far this season, with George Fowler now being the stand-in right back, Jack Cooley, Joe Lowell at the back as well. As for the two central defenders, I thought Joe through a lull was absolutely exceptional yesterday. Some of the last-ditch challenges he made, making up for other people's mistakes and well-worked opportunities from Dorking. Really, really impressive from Joe through a lull there. Jack Corley as well. Actually, I did think that during the game he did win a significant portion of his duels. Did perform well in the air for the vast majority of the game. And again, his ground duels, not too many times did people get around him. It just was opportunities which we just really sillily gave away. Couple back passes throughout the game. I think 3 actually, maybe even 4 pass backs. One, of course, resulting in that last goal. Really, really disappointing. Just to see that lack of composure in the team, especially from someone who I think a lot of people had quite high expectations for, someone who was a quite frequent asset of Bromley in the previous season in the National League, a good team in the National League last season, Bromley. So, maybe expectations are a little bit higher, but, sometimes it just takes a while to iron out these individual mistakes. As for Gavin Hoyt, I thought he played quite well. It's not his natural position, so you can't really ask for much more than what he can give us. Fantastic player, Gavin. Again, the pinnacle of consistency for me. You can put him anywhere. He played centre-back a lot last season, was great there as well. I do prefer him on the right, just because he's more comfortable. He's more visibly comfortable as well. Shifting the ball onto his right foot whilst playing on the left-hand side isn't, ideal. I'm a right-footed player. I hate playing on my left foot. Of course, Gavin's a lot more experienced than me, but everybody's got their preferences, and when you can be as comfortable as possible during a game, then of course you'll be a little bit more likely to perform. George Fowler playing at right back. He's not a right back. I mean, he's played there before in his career, but unfortunately for me, just in this system that we play, he's not really what we need at right back. Of course, the situation demands that he plays there unless we reshuffle even more of the team. I don't want to see Rory Deacon, one of our most valuable attacking assets, considering the injuries we've got, playing right back anymore. So George Fowler coming in there, worked quite well against York City the weekend, but unfortunately for me, he was a little bit too narrow at some times. He hasn't really got the confidence on the ball going forward. His final delivery, of course, isn't going to be as good as someone who's consistently playing at full-back. But for the job that he's doing at the moment, not really too much to write home about in terms of his all-round play. I think positionally a few times he was a little bit narrow. There was a couple of times where Bobby Joe Taylor got fantastic opportunities to walk into the box in 5 to 10 yards of space at times on the counter. And Fowler was kind of dragged towards the middle of the field. So something to look at there maybe. But of course this is probably not going to be the long-term strategy that we do deploy in the National League. On to the midfield now, and Sam Corn. Of course, the red card I did mention. Perhaps a little bit unfortunate there, of course. I don't know what he said. You probably don't know what he said. Maybe he said something worth sending off. Maybe he didn't. But he did get a red card at the end of the day. It's the National League. You give referees any chance to impose their power. We've seen it all last season in the South. Fans have already been complaining this season across the National League, not just Maidstone, other teams as well. Teams that have even won games complained about the referee. So it doesn't really seem like a lot's changed. So yeah, if you give anybody an opportunity to book you or give away a free kick or give a penalty, anything like that, then these refs will probably take it, probably quite easily. But in terms of a bit of performing arts, they can fall things quite easily. So, it's a little bit of a shame to see Sam sent off in that situation, but it is what it is. For his general game, I thought he had a decent game. Unfortunately, couldn't really impose himself on the game too much. A lot of chasing was quite characteristic of that midfield three yesterday versus Dorking. They do like to play quite expansive attacking football, and we did kind of move around as a pack, which then led to the midfield being a little bit empty, which brings me on to Dom Odesanya. Did give the ball away for the second goal. Terry Harris mentioned it in his post-match interview. Suicidal ball, really, just straight across the middle of the park. First time touch, trying to set us up on the counter. It's a decent idea, but a little bit more composure and maybe just shifting that ball quite comfortably across to the left-hand side. Just taking another 2 seconds or something to, take a touch, assess the situation, get the ball off. Could have still set us up on a good attack, but unfortunately did give it away. I think it was Jack Jebb that intercepted and put James McShane through for his second of the game. As for the first goal, didn't quite cover that. Ball came in from Maidstone's left-hand side, Bobby Joe Taylor was out there on the Dorking right, got a ball in. I think it did hit through a low on the head, skid off over to, I think, Gallagher, who just passed the ball across to James McShane and levelled it in. So a bit of an unfortunate one there. Those things do happen. You can get a header on the ball when you're challenged, but unfortunately it doesn't quite come off as you anticipated. So, you can move from that one. Don't read too much into that. Maybe we could have closed down Bobby Joe a little bit more out on our left-hand side. But as for the rest of the midfield, Regan Booty, of course, had a pretty decent game. Some of his passing was immaculate as per. Did get stuck in a few times. But again, we don't really have that ball winner in midfield for me. Michael Phillips, a lot of people did criticise his potentially somewhat one-dimensional play. I see that a few times mentioned when he did leave. He didn't really have a lot to his game. We could bring in someone who's got more assets in terms of their all-round style. But what Michael Phillips did have was a very specific set of defensive abilities, and being able to win the ball back in the National League is a key feature in a winning team. Being able to break up oncoming attacks with pretty decent efficiency, getting stuck in, winning the ball back, and being able to securely play it out whilst under pressure is something that is very undervalued and something that we currently do not really have. I'd say Regan Booty, Sam Corn, they've got other things to their game that are more valuable to this team. Of course, long passing, goal scoring, late arrivals in the box from Sam Corn and Regan Booty is probably what their most valuable attributes are. For me, we do need an imposing defensive midfielder. Hopefully that is sorted quite soon. The midfield options we have are limited. Of course, we've got the starting three of Adesanya, Corn, Booty. Henry Woods has come in and faced a lot of criticism very early on. Of course, ex-Gillingham, that's always going to come up as well, and it has done. Did not have a good game. Versus Dorking yesterday. Really poor at times. Did not look up for it. Looked very lacklustre in his performance, unfortunately. And he did give away that penalty as well. It was a penalty for me. A few people saying it's soft. I was up in the gantry, had a fantastic view of it. Looked like a pen to me. I did call it before the ref even give it. I may be wrong. Upon review, I might have been sold by that as well. But you can't. Again, it's what I was saying about the referees, especially in this division. If it wasn't a foul and it was bought by the Dorking man, then you can't give away opportunities for players to go down in and around the box. They're going to take it 9 times out of 10, and another 9 times out of 10 the ref's going to take it as well. So unlucky there maybe on the penalty. For me, just a poor challenge, not necessary. I think Woods is going to struggle. He's got a few fans on his back already. For me, I do prefer constructive criticism. As you'll notice in this video, I'm not slagging anybody off. I'm just making critiques of performances, highlighting potential areas for improvement. I'm not here to dig anyone out, not here to, get personal with things. That is just not really what I do. I understand some people do that. I understand, it's very frustrating at times when these new players in particular do come in, don't quite fit the style of play or don't quite look up for it at times. It's very difficult as a fan to comprehend that someone who you're not familiar with is coming in potentially costing your team who you love points, but I'm not necessarily sure that's the case here. Is Woods going to be good enough? I don't know. The management team have decided that he's good enough to at least bring in. I do believe we might have paid a fee for him, considering he was still contracted to Gillingham. There might have been something arranged there, but the management must have been quite sold on what Woods could bring to this team. For me, a little bit unconvinced so far in terms of what we've seen from him. Pre-season looked pretty good to me, but the quality of side that we played in pre-season was not adequate enough to really judge performances off of. And that goes for the majority of our signings so far. Jack Cooley, the only one who's regularly featured out of the new signings. Hadi Gandor didn't look amazing versus Altrincham, and then of course got sent off. Came on at the end of this game as well. Didn't look excellent. Of course, he's coming back. Can't really read too much into it, but again, game time probably a key feature there. James Larby crying out for minutes probably. Unfortunately, he's not really got too much of a run out, but again, looked quite good in pre-season. But the quality of opposition, you stick James Larby in in the Isthmian division, and he's banging 30 goals, 40 goals a season. So, that's the opposition we were facing in pre-season. Hard to read into the quality of the new incomings, but the regular features of our team have been performing pretty well so far this season. Solwandro Smith, huge loss for me. Someone who I thought was going to come in, go straight onto that left wing, going to be starting every week up front with Deacon Barham, something like that. Unfortunately, not looking too good for him when it comes to bedding into the squad due to some fitness concerns and other things regarding his all-round play. If you do look at the update video on the Stones TV that was released last week, then Bethan Cooper does explain a little bit more there about the struggles he's having. Hopefully he's back soon. Could be a really valuable player for us going forward. But looking at the front line now, we of course look at Rory Deacon, someone who excelled against York City, my man of the match in that game. 90 minutes, fantastic he was. And again, I thought he was pretty good in this game as well. I think Rory needs the team to support him. The way he plays football relies on other people giving him an option. He works space, he works around players, and the out ball's just not always there for him. Unfortunately, that was the case against Dorking. He did do some good work, great touches as well, with balls sprayed out to him by Regan Booty and the like, but just couldn't really create anything from it because the team just wasn't always there with an adequate backup in that situation. Jack Barham, for me, picked up a goal, good goal as well. Very scrappy, like 6 yards, and was a rebound, but you've got to be there to score. You've got to be alert. You've got to be quite switched on, poaching in the box and around the box to finish a ball like that. So, good positioning, good reactions from him to pick up a goal there. But unfortunately, throughout the game, his running was great, but it was a tough game. It was a really tough game at times. And again, it was that adequate support that I'm talking about. Sometimes the front three isn't enough when you've got a whole back line of Dorking players and 1 or 2 midfielders dropping back into the mix as well. You do need good responses from your full-backs to maybe spread the play a little bit, or your midfield to help bolster the centre of the field. So yeah, just not quite good enough for me there. Unfortunately, it's not really Jack's fault, but he's a great player. We'll see more from him in the coming weeks as well, and he's come back from a massive long-term injury as well. Good couple months out that he's had before the season did start, so I'm sure he'll carry on doing his game, and that will pay off once the rest of the team can pick back up again. And then Christy Patterson, didn't have the impact that he has when he comes on. Of course not. Everybody's fully fit when he starts a game. But those last half an hour or so, when he does get subbed on, he's able to run rings around players the majority of the time. And unfortunately, in the first half, a few players did manage to usher him out. Cheadle was quite good at times at keeping Christie wide. It was a very tough game for him, but he did pick up a goal, did create a lot of chances as well, but also missed a good chance as well. So, all round, not too much to write home about. I thought the forward line was pretty good. If the midfield and defence was a little bit more switched on when it comes to their all-round play, dictating the tempo of this game, then I think we could have won that game. I do think that if we'd managed to play last season's starting 11, I think we probably would have won that game. The organisation, the familiarity, Dorking were not very organised at times, and as I said, the game was so back and forth that I think it just kind of spiralled out of control. And unfortunately, Maidstone were the team that couldn't quite keep up, especially with 10 men. As for improvements moving forward, like I said, I think a defensive midfielder needs to come in. We need a senior player. Henry Woods has not really got that experience. I mean, he played in arguably the worst National League team of all time last season with Dover. Not too many people wrote home about him when he did leave. I think he could be a valuable asset, but at the moment it's looking like he's going to have a tough time getting into this team. Odesanya's just looking a little bit better for me. I don't want to slag anybody off, of course. These are players who are trying their best for the team, hopefully. But yeah, I think he's got to pick himself up. He's going to need the support of fans, people around him, other players, management, whatever, if he is going to improve his game, and he will need to improve his game. Someone on the Facebook group said to me yesterday that they do think that, by September he'll be out on loan at Tunbridge Angels. So, it's definitely a possibility. The standard football that we've seen from him so far just hasn't been there yet. He could turn it around. Still early doors, but he's got a lot of convincing to do, and if he's going to get people back on side, he's going to need some big performances in the coming weeks, and where better to do it than Wrexham, and that is the game coming at the weekend. As I said, I should be commentating that game with Connor, so hopefully we can get live, we can sort something out during the week regarding our technology situation, but going forward into Wrexham, I think we need to see a little bit more of the same in terms of our energy. Of course, quick turnover of games, 3 games in a week is going to be tough, but we see it last season a couple of times as well, and we still managed to perform. So we do need to make the step up, maybe try and make the most out of Wrexham's poor form of late, really. For Wrexham, played off the park apparently after losing 2-0 versus Chesterfield at the weekend, or last night, sorry. So, we could potentially cause a little bit of an upset there. I think Gavin Hoyt needs to return to right back for me. That left back position, I think we need to see maybe Liam Vincent out there. I think he looked okay against Altrincham, but he just, he got pulled out for the goal, and after that, hooked at half time. As a short-term player, you may not be relied upon too heavily when it comes to fitting into this team. I think there's only a couple of weeks left of his loan as well, so it's going to be interesting to see what we do at the back in that game. Seems like Mersin's still going to be the number one option. I think that's probably right. Again, like I said, questions were asked after York game, and then last night turned up, played really well, so perhaps just a little bit of a concentration lapse in the York game, but we did come away with a win, so can't write home too much about that one. But yeah, for me, I think the midfield 3 has got to be Booty, Kwon, or Adesanya. I'm not too sure if the red card rule does stand in the same stead as it did in the National League South last season, which was, I think, if you're suspended, it only comes into play a week after you receive it, which means Kwon would be available for Wrexham. I don't know if that still stands. Someone, hopefully, if you do know, can let me know in the comments down below. There may be some sort of appeal against it, although it'll be hard considering there's no video footage of what he said. So it will be tough, especially losing Kwon. If we're going to have a midfield 3 of Booty, Adesanya and Woods, that could be quite troublesome. The balance is not there in that midfield. And after Woods' last game, the criticism he did receive, it's going to be tough for him to try and impose himself against Wrexham of all people. So yeah, it's going to be a really tough one. Front line, I think we might see a Larby come back in just for something different up front. Maybe that long ball option against Wrexham could be on. I think we'll see Deacon playing, Barn playing, then maybe a Larby on the left. Like I say, Gandor didn't look too sharp in that game against Dorking, but you're coming on with 10 men and you're already 3-2 down, I think, by the time you come on. So, really hard to do anything in that situation. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do. Anybody's guess really at this stage, but hopefully we can put in a better team performance, something more structured. Most definitely, all we want to see as fans is effort and performance. As long as we can see everybody on the pitch is giving 100% every single week, that's all we really care about. No one's going to Wrexham expecting us to win or get a point. I'd be quite happy with a 1 or 2-0 loss as long as we played well on the night. But the situation it is at the moment, it looks like it could be quite a troublesome trip to Wrexham. But I will bring out a preview for that game, looking at Wrexham's season so far, our season so far, what I think we're going to see from them. That'll probably be actually in a different podcast coming. A couple of the boys from Stones Live during this week, hopefully out before the Wrexham game. Just a little preview of that and our review of the season so far after a few games. So if you did enjoy this video, just taking a little look over the game yesterday, maybe some improvements we could make around the squad, of course, some of the signings, some of the weaker maybe departments of the squad considering the injuries we've got, and some of the signings not quite performing how we might have hoped, then of course do subscribe to the channel and like the video down below. Please do give me your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm happy for, you know, criticism, anything like that on some of the things that I do say. Do try and keep it, you know, friendly. I'm always friendly in my debates, you know, never looking to slag anybody off for an opinion. Everybody's different. Everyone's got a different view on how people perform, but hopefully we can perform well against Wrexham. So again, like I say, do leave your comments below for your maybe predictions of that game, how you thought Dorking went, and hopefully we'll be able to kick on for the weekend. So I'll catch you in the next video, and thank you all for watching.